Those of you who have seen the documentary Follow the Rain will be familiar with the zombie hunter Donovan Teal. Donovan has since collected holotypes for 16 new fungi species and worked with scientists to describe them. He is a prolific photographer and champion of the little things. Welcome to the Citizen Science Show podcast, Donovan Teal.
Thank you, Danny.
So good to meet you. How did you get to be known as the zombie hunter?
Well, finding zombies was what got me there, but
You've got me. What are zombies? What zombies?
it's a little bit of a buzzword we use for these fungi that they go out and attack living creatures, usually spiders and insects, and many of them they manipulate the behavior of the host. So it's arguable how much they're sort of taken over the brain of the animal before they kill it, but they do seem to trigger them to do certain things. And I found one and I kept looking for them. And the more that I found, the more I sort of understood how they behaved and where they ended up. And it just got easier and easier.
Oh, well, I think he really did come to fame with the documentary that was put out recently called Follow the Rain, which you can watch on Netflix. And that was a documentary by two Australian fungi hunters. We'll call them mycologists, but they're absolutely world-renowned filmmakers and photographers. Now, their names are Stephen Axford and Catherine Massiniak, and we have had them on the Citizen Science Show podcast number 53 last year, exactly 1 year ago today. So it's only fitting that we bring you along as one of the stars of that documentary. And that's how I came about knowing your name. I watched this documentary and then suddenly this person's walking through a stream, next thing they're macheting down camphor laurels and you're all over the place. And then suddenly you're like, there you go, I found one. It's interesting. And you just flick the leaf over on this plant and look at this tiny little thing. And I'm like, what is this? And it's like, it's a zombie fungi. Is that how it happened? Is that how easy it was for you to find these zombie fungi?
To be honest, it took me a year. When I first moved down to UK in 2020, I was like, right, there's so much wildlife there. Like, it's just a beautiful diversity, right? You can't do anything without seeing something new.
Sorry, whereabouts is this?
Mount Wollumben is sort of like, it has a big cold deer around it, northeast New South Wales. It looks like a massive crater. And I was in a little town just in the foothills of it called Yukai. Very small little town. But that rainforest around that area is some of the oldest on the planet. And I was in a little tiny cabin and the garden backed onto it. So, yeah, I was pretty thrilled to have a camera and be in such a great place. And at first I was all the frogs and, the big spiders, and it was basically Jurassic Park for insects there. Eventually I found one that I was like, wow, this is something different. Something's wrong with this spider. I was very active with the Facebook groups. At the time, they were just so helpful for finding IDs and finding information about this wildlife that I thought I knew it all. And it was only really when I started taking photos that I was like, oh no, this huntsman spider is actually 6 different types of huntsman spider. And so I started meeting all these scientists who were giving all their time and expertise freely. Eventually, after a year of looking at ants and frogs and stuff, I photographed one of these fungi in the process of eating a spider and I put it up. And that sort of introduced me to a whole heap of people. Nigel Howell-Jones, he's like a bit of a godfather of the zombie fungi. He coined the term. But yeah, he was super helpful. Yeah, just really open with everything, all of his tips and stuff. And he sort of instilled in me the attitude of being the same. Like, it's not all these people trying to keep all these secrets and all this stuff, and that's not fungi people at all. They'll tell you every single secret they've discovered.
Okay.
In the first meeting.
And I bet the first question most people will ask is, can you eat them?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's some of the products, the little exotic chemicals that these fungi are making. They make them for a whole heap of different reasons, but some of them, yeah, they do strange things. They do really strange things. And some of them could be really important for medical research, like the cordyceps one, militaris, I think it was isolated from, is now used as a drug to stop people rejecting organs during transplants.
That came from a zombie fungi.
Yeah. So they have all these chemicals. Most of them are designed when these fungi manage to take down a spider or an insect, a big bit of game. they have to move really quick to secure the kill. I've sort of compare it to a whale fall. Like it's this huge chunk of nutrients that's been made available in the ecosystem, and all the little tiny microbes and the semi-slugs and everything moves in on it and tries to get it. So the fungi is the fungi that's made the kill, the zombie one, or entomopathogenic, which is what I should be calling it.
Isn't that a great word? Entomopathogenic fungi. Woohoo! You do sound like the scientist.
It's such a good word, isn't it? They call them EPFs, I found out when I was in the field with them. They were like, oh, EPF. I was like, what?
AKA zombie fungi.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll often be producing all these special chemicals to stop bacteria rotting away the corpse, or different types of other fungi coming in. And some of the fungi live just to eat these zombie fungi. So they're hyperparasites that target them specifically, and they'll like straight away monster all the spore bits new to them, so they can't actually breed, and they'll secure all those nutrients. But most of them are just opportunistic, moving in and getting on them. So the fungi have to produce.
Yeah, tell us the life cycle of one of these zombie fungi.
They're really, really diverse creatures. And this is one of the things that I went into this feet first, and I thought it was going to be a subject that I could learn, right? Like I just thought, I'll read a couple of books and I'll talk to some of the world's experts.
Sounds easy.
Yes.
Entomopathogenic fungi.
Yeah, but every single thing you learn leads to something else. And it just, when you think that someone's research has answered it, they're just like, maybe. So there's so much diversity, and they have a whole heap of different little tricks.
Okay.
And some of these types of fungi, they attack plants. If you look back at their sort of genetic history, you'll see that maybe they might have started off as an ergot-style fungi on a bit of grain.
Okay.
And then it's evolved over time. It started attacking other fungi, and then it started attacking animals, and now it's cordyceps sort of thing. And some of them are sort of generalists, and they'll just like sort of scatter spores everywhere and like cast a wide net and try to get something. But others are really specific, and it's hard not to sort of look at it as if it's being real sneaky and intelligent. But sort of two things kind of have to happen. One thing is that they have to be in sync with the prey's life cycle.
Yeah. So
if it's going to attack a cicada, then it needs to be there when the cicada is coming out of its hole and all vulnerable and stuff, or it needs to, before it goes under the ground. It has to be somehow in balance with the life cycle of its prey. The other thing that has to happen is it has to defeat the animal's defenses. So, spiders and insects, just like us, they have all these layers of defense. They've got like an immune system and stuff, but it mainly starts at the skin. Well, they have chitin exoskeleton thing. But if you look at the exoskeleton, the cuticle of it, the very protective outer line, is basically 3 little slivers, and the top sliver is sort of like an oily, fatty secretion that gets put out through holes in these other 2 layers of armor. And it has chemicals in it that are usually fungi-static, which means that any spore lands on the creature, these chemicals make it so it can't germinate. And so what has to happen is the fungi has to have a way of defeating all of these fatty acids and stuff that are released by the bug through its little holes in its hard armor, so the little spore can actually germinate. And once the spore germinates, it produces all these weird acids and different exotic chemicals, and it burns its way through the hard armor, gets into the animal, right? Now, if it gets into the animal, it turns into like thin little threads, like little hairs usually, moves through the body. And what it moves to is the place of the body where the bug or the spider is storing its fat supplies usually. So that's it's sort of like it's not taking out anything essential. And a lot of bugs will be putting away all of these stored fats for when they do their final transformation into the adult insect, right? The grub is basically just storing up all this energy, getting ready for the final sort of instar. And so it gets in there, and it's only really when the critter goes to use that supplies, it's like, right, I'm going to use my energy reserves, and then it's like, oh no, my energy reserves is all being turned into fungi, and it either dies or the fungi decides to wipe it out. And then using all that converted food that the fungi's got, it'll then do what's called a fruiting body. So it'll grow that's where you see the mushroom coming out of the brain, or lots of spikes coming out over it. It goes all yellow and just turns into dust. all these really weird sort of things that happen and make them look so diverse, like it's very difficult to tell people what they look like when they have so many different looks.
When you're finding your zombie fungi, are the insects already dead, or have you witnessed insects in the process of being consumed by the fungi and already having these fruiting bodies emerging while they're still walking along and looking like something alien?
Such a good question, because I'm always trying to find them while they're still alive and just affected. And sometimes I think I do. Sometimes I think I do. Like you'll see an ant that's behaving very weird for an ant. A lot of the time it's another parasite, like it might be a worm making something climb up high so it gets eaten by a bird, or maybe it's been injured, or it's been affected by a chemical from another bug's warfare. Or so it's very hard to tell when they're alive unless you've had them in a container and infected them in a live situation. I'm usually seeing them once there's some sort of visual cue. And now that I've photographed thousands of them, I've kind of managed to capture most of the species that I see all the way along the life cycle. So from when they first start, showing signs of being infected all the way through. And sometimes I will watch them for over a year. So it's not so much a zombie really, it's more of a mummy. Like they will preserve that corpse and then through the dry season. Then when it's wet, it'll sort of refruit again and drop another load of spores, and then it'll dry back out and survive longer.
How do you make sure you don't become infected? Are you infected? How would you know?
Another good question. Good nutrition, I reckon. Like healthy living, to eat a bit of fruit every now and again. There are a lot of these different fungi, especially the ones that are more generalists, rather than being like something that only attacks a certain type of ant or something. These ones that will throw a big net and just get whatever they can. These are the ones that we usually see popping up in immunocompromised people. But yeah, there's mushrooms in the forest that if you breathe in their spores, they are going to grow in you. If your immune system isn't up, if they get through, but they're not generally targeting us. Our body temperature, I don't know if you've seen the Last of Us thing, but our body temperature, it tends to prevent fungi being able to grow and breed and stuff. And some bugs will actually trigger a fever as well, raise their body temperature by shivering or whatever. Yeah, to try and wipe out fungi spores that are in them. But they don't have the same layers of defense that we do against them. So for us, bacterials and virals are more dangerous. For bugs, fungi's probably the biggest one.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you've discovered hundreds of these infected insects, and it's basically Australian native insects being infected by Australian native zombie fungi, and it's all completely new to science.
I wish it was all completely new. I definitely have managed to make some observations that haven't been seen before, and I've helped solve a couple of mysteries, of course, usually by complete accident. The big thing for me has been seeing how these very, very strange and old life forms move using like little patches of noxious weed and people's gardens as stepping stones. We all have a little remnant patch of rainforest, and they'll manage to jump from little bits to habitat into people's backyards. So it's very common for me to be at a party or something, or a barbecue, and I'll see a lemon tree or something, and I'll be like, I wonder, and walk over and come back with a leaf with an ant with a fungi spike coming out of its head. I think once you accept they're there, like I think the reason I never really noticed them before, and why the last 4 years I've just seen them everywhere, is because after finding a really nice one, I just assumed I was going to find more.
Wow.
Like I was just like, oh, so they're here. And once I sort of convinced myself that they were there, it really just took taking my time, slowing down, and spending the time to try and find them. These are all skills I learned from trying to find things like the little bark crab spiders on trees and stuff like.
Sounds very meditative. Very good for you.
Yeah, it's also I think it's a little bit methodical too. Even when I would go out and I would spend a couple of hours staring at leaves, and people would just be like, "What is that guy doing?" and not find anything. I still learnt a lot from that. So, learning where things weren't ended up being as helpful as knowing where they were.
So what are the most common plant species we might find them on?
So they vary a lot, right? They're very light. And the ones we've been talking about mainly are underneath leaves, like in the documentary. However, they'll often be on sticks, they'll be on logs, they'll be on tree trunks, they'll be in the dirt. You'll find them on ceilings, underneath branches and stuff. So they really are very diverse and they don't really have like a specific habitat. However, good trees to look for, you want something that's going to create a nice, stable microclimate. So citrus trees are a really good one because they have long-lasting leaves and they've got that sort of curved shape, almost like a little umbrella. And you get a little patch of them together and they'll make a really good spot. I find locust trees are another really good one. There's lots of really nice natives like the Psittoporium revolutum. I've butchered that name. Anything that's got a nice big leaf that's sort of curved over, the black apples and the stuff like that, they tend to be really good. And I suppose things that are going to have really dense foliage work really well as well. If you sort of think about if you're standing in an area like a patch of lawn, right? It's all bright and sunshine, and you see one sort of dense tree with really close together leaves, big close together leaves, and you see how like dark it is and how it like stands out. So like a dark tree surrounded by all that negative space, all that light and stuff, that's where the hosts are going to go. And so it's often easier in someone's backyard. If they've got one nice tree that's creating a real sort of dense, dark spot, it's often easier to find these fungi there than it would be in a rainforest where they're everywhere, but there's so much good habitat that they're all over the place. They're not being drawn to this one little honeypot.
So you said you can find them on leaves on the ground and sticks and rocks and things like that. But the ones you're finding, are they mainly on growing leaves?
Yeah. They like these long-lasting leaves. And the more sort of lichen and moss and, plant hopper sheds and bug eggs and the more things happening on a leaf, the more growth and stuff on it, the more likely you are to see them. Like it seems like the older the leaf, the happier they are. And if you go into places in different parts of the hemisphere where they have a lot of deciduous trees, you'll find that you won't find them under leaves there as much. They will be taking advantage of stalks and twigs and under rocks and stuff, more like that. But they're usually there. If you're in an environment and there's bugs, there's likely the fungi that eat them, and it becomes a case of tracking them down, and that's where the hunter bit comes in. I'm not out there.
Yeah,
I'm not out there taking down scalps here. I'm laying on my stomach in a creek, looking up on the underside of a rock, or holding a torch up into the foliage, looking in the trees.
So at night time's good. Is that a good time to go zombie hunting?
It definitely can be, provided that one, you're comfortable in the bush. Being comfortable in the bush just takes all that pressure off. You're not panicking about snakes. You're not slipping over and hurting yourself. You're not worried about everything that touches you and stuff. And so you can focus on looking. But the good thing about nighttime is if you have a torch, many of these are white or yellow, so they reflect back beautifully. Some of the best finds I've found have been so easy with a torch. Like I flick the torch and I'm just like, are you serious?
Do you have a black torch as well, so you get that phosphorescence effect?
I do, but I haven't been using it much. I've only really had one fungi that had that fluorescent sort of feedback, and I think it was a hyperparasite. I didn't actually manage to get that one culture.
Okay, yeah, okay.
But I haven't seen much. UV reaction. Usually, if I pull out the UV torch, it's to see if I can see a scorpion
or echidna spines.
So cool.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? I love going out at night time with a black torch. How big are these little mummified zombie fungi underneath leaves?
It all comes down to the host, right?
Okay. You mentioned a cicada, but
yes, I mean, and a cicada can be pretty big, right?
Yeah.
Like those big greengrocers cicadas, when I find them as a host, I'm always like, oh, this one here is going to look great. But they range down, and I suspect that many of the undiscovered ones are quite common. They're not as rare as people think, but the hosts are so small. So like little tiny lace bugs, for example. I noticed a heap of lace bugs recently in someone's garden, and I pulled over one of the leaves and I pulled out my little macro camera and I zoomed in on them. And of the 3 lace bugs that were there, 2 of them had fungi spikes growing out of them. And I was like, rad, I can't go anywhere. I can't look at anything.
Maybe you're the vector.
Yeah, well, it's possible. It feels like it some days. Especially, most of the finds I'm finding are within 50 meters of my front door. I'm very jealous of the people who get to go over to the Amazon and stuff.
You might get there yet, Donovan. Never say never.
Yes, well, I got invited to Sarawak the other day,
Oh, beautiful.
which was pretty solid. I've done some Malaysian rainforest in my time, and I was like,
Have you looked inside those pitcher plants to see the insects that are being consumed by the plant, to see if they've already got the zombie fungi? So it's like a double whammy, this nutrient bomb for the plant.
oh, I haven't checked for that, but I was very impressed with all of the pitcher plants in Malaysia. I got to serve with our infantry on 2 tours in Malaysia, and both times I got some good jungle time, and I was very easily distracted. What a beautiful country.
Yes, yes. And even having little monkeys up in the tree. It is amazing. So you obviously love being in the tropics. You like sweating. You like jungles. Would we be able to find these zombie fungi in the drier areas of Australia, do you think?
Definitely. It's amazing how well they've adapted to the sort of flood drought cycle that we have. They can be tricky though. Like, don't get me wrong, the Cordyceps gunnii, I think is how you pronounce. It's like a black spike that grows up out of the dirt.
Well, that's a desert fungi. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's a cicada fungi, right? So anywhere where there's the bugs, and keep in mind, like a cicada is not just a heap of fatty nutrients for them to convert across. It's also water and that fungi need, but it's trapped inside a bug. A lot of bugs are very good at keeping their water because they don't want to get desiccated. So for fungi, this is just a total win.
Wow, incredible. I am going to start looking. Is it seasonal though?
The more rain we have, the more humidity, the more likely you are to find them.
Temperature?
Yeah. I mean, this time of year in northeast New South Wales is perfect. About a month ago, we probably peaked, and it was it was disgusting. It was hot, it was humid, it was raining, storming. Yeah, and the fungi loved it. They really did. It does mirror the bugs too. So if the bugs are breeding out of control, then probably the fungi is about to take advantage of that.
And we've got a lot of insects, coming into autumn. They're hunkering down, getting ready. They're provisioning their nests, the wasps, the bees. Everyone's getting ready to go into that senescence for autumn, winter. So that's when the fungi take advantage, right?
Well, they will take advantage at any time. I would say they're such opportunists. They really are. We spend so much time looking at the ones that are so specific at targeting a particular bug and how they take it down and monster it and stuff. And you get that sample and you're like, wow, look at this cool thing. And you send it off to the lab and they try to culture a pure sample of it. And they end up with 30 species as carefully as they can, but these samples are just covered in different creatures. And they grow them out, and a lot of the time you'll get a new species, but it was never the one that we were going for. It just happened to be there. Like, what was it doing? Is it eating the zombie fungi? Was it just chilling out? Was it eating the bug? Was it eating the plant?
Okay, lots of questions. Yes,
so many questions. It's great.
Now, have one of those new species of fungi been named after you?
It was a little bit special, right? Like everyone hopes their little 5 minutes of fame is not going to be too bad, but mine was a very wholesome experience. And it all came about because I managed to meet a man named Roger Shivas, the lead scientist for the DPI's herbarium in Brisbane. And I managed to meet him through Nigel on the Facebook groups, which was cool. And Roger wasn't really into the Facebook stuff, but we started doing just email correspondence, and he was like, yeah, send us some up. And from the first batch that I sent up, he actually isolated a type of mold that was growing on there, and it ended up getting named Penicillium thielii, which I was pretty stoked about.
There you go.
Yeah, that was a pretty sort of special moment. And then we actually managed to get Walter Gamsia Isabellae, which was named after my daughter Isabella. Was pretty cool.
That is sweet. Yeah,
there's such a cool team up there at the DPI. There's so much work, so many specialists. At the end of it all, not only do they, publish a beautiful paper, but they keep these different fungi in living cultures. So anyone around the world who wants to get a sample of these different fungi from the UK rainforest can get a sample from them and conduct research on this living creature.
Well, imagine, you've discovered a new penicillin potentially, and who knows what its applications could be.
And that is science, right? It's all happy discoveries and little coincidences.
Not just science. This is citizen science. You are a citizen scientist that is helping the scientists in the lab discover these new species. And you really are that connector between on-the-ground citizen science and the professors in the lab. Where would we be without you, Donovan? You've done amazing work. I'm not surprised they've honoured you by naming species after you. And it sounds like you've only been into this for 4 years? This is something it's relatively new.
Yeah, 4 years. I've just been lucky that I've been able to fit it in around my life so much. My beautiful lady Jade, she's a mad keen zombie hunter as well. We just had our first joint discovery, although it was probably all her, that one. Eucerium valentinae, named after a warrior scientist from World War II who ran the bomb decryption device in London.
Oh my goodness!
Cracking the Nazis' code. They pretty much, I'm the only dude of the 16 that has been named after. They've all been formidable women.
Oh.
It's been really, really cool. Like, as I said, it's a very cool team of people up at the DPI lab. They're pretty good on their honors. Like I was pretty happy we got Pottera beatricus, which was named after Beatrix Potter.
Yes. I love that one.
Because she was an amateur mycologist as well. If you look at her books.
I've seen some of her drawings. I have.
It's full of mushrooms, right?
Yes. I was going to ask you, do you have your own shirt yet? Zombie hunters.
We got one we're working on. It. The No Rest for the Dead shirt. Photographer chasing the zombie, right? Like we've got a couple. I've been working with an artist on that one. She thinks it's pretty fun.
It is. Oh, it's fabulous. Yeah. You're bringing a bit of humour into the science there as well, which we all need.
I have to drop this one just because it was a big deal for me.
Oh, yeah.
Lorraine Smithia elchiae. And that one there was my first new genus. So not just a fungi species, but a new genus.
It's all new to science. What you're discovering is amazing.
It's kind of wild because I talk up these people in the lab because they are amazing. These are like top scientists. They're pretty big honor to be working with them, but getting to do the field work while they're stuck in there, and I see the jealousy on their faces and stuff, and I'm just like, haha. But to be able to bring people photos and stuff of these fungi without them slipping on a rock or getting bitten by mosquitoes or getting a splinter or something like that is so nice.
They would get hurt. You're right.
I love taking people into the rainforest, but when you see the beautiful photos and stuff, it's easy to forget the amount of blood that was lost to mosquitoes and leeches and ticks and slipping over and just all the random stuff that happens in the rainforest. Like you have to enjoy it.
You have to have a passion.
Yeah.
This is a very intense passion that you have here, and it sounds like it's only starting. What are your plans for the future? Where do you want to take this?
I've started a little company called Earthling Cards, where I've been selling big photography packs, stock photography packs for the people to use in their own projects. That's about as far as I've taken it on this. I'm currently still working, doing the bush regen style stuff, where we're like taking out the noxious weeds and planting in the fresh stuff, little natives. Not quite sure what to do with it all. I'd love to take people out into the bush and do tours and stuff.
Maybe you just need to propagate these zombie fungi in a very safe environment, like a botanic garden or something, and then make that your field site.
It would be great to have them in sort of aquarium style setups. That's sort of my background is working with aquariums. So I've always, every time I see them, I'm like, oh, this would look so good in a 6-foot tank. Like,
just imagine your house full of zombie fungi spores. Yeah, friends love coming over for a party.
That does make people nervous.
I think so.
It's warranted too. You have to respect wildlife. And these creatures are a lot older than humanity is. So you got to give them a little bit of respect.
We do. Well, we don't really know the role they play in the ecosystem yet, do we? They're there, but what's their place?
It has to be something constructive, honestly, because you can generally tell how healthy rainforest is by how many parasites you see. The more parasites you see, the healthier the rainforest. It doesn't seem to make sense, but everything has its little role to play in these ecosystems. And all the ecosystems that seem to have the most productivity and fertility, like estuaries, for example, are just packed with parasites. I wish I knew their role, but I suspect it's somehow they keep everything else functioning better. The same way people say like predators will knock off the sick and the old and, the injured and stuff. I think the fungi sort of prevent any one species from really dominating. I always hesitate to say like pest control or something because there's no pests. It's all such a human sort of notion. But anything that's too successful turns itself into a really obvious food source. I think fungi sort of cracked that. Like there was all those plants and stuff building up on Earth, and they weren't rotting down. They're all turning into coal and all that stuff. And then fungi came along and turned all that fuel load, I suppose people in Australia would call it, turned all that into beautiful soil. And that's how we got all these big rainforests and stuff. So whether you're a big pile of mulch or you're an ant nest that's getting a little bit too out of control, I think fungi are there to sort of level the playing field every year and again. And
The balances. Yeah.
yeah, I think we're pretty safe. But obviously, if you talk to any nurses or doctors, they'll tell you about the problem fungi's that they have. The candida especially, that's it's turning into a little bit of a nightmare as it evolves in hospitals. These guys out in the wild, I think they're just part of letting rainforest be rainforest, like letting it be as complicated as it is.
And they've been hiding for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, and you've found them.
There is no more joy in this than showing other people and then having them find their first one. Because once they found their first one, they're now a believer.
Yeah.
Now that they know it's there, it's like perspective is reality.
Yeah. What do we do as citizen scientists then? If we go out and we do find one, what do we do?
The first thing you do is take cool photos, post them for cred on social media, I suppose, or iNat's so helpful, of course. And most of the time, photography is the way to go. At first, I didn't realize how perfect the sample had to be of any use in a lab. And so I collected quite a few samples, which I should have just left. They were too early. And, if you take too many of these in an area, you're going to impact their chance to stay there, right? So I really didn't want to be putting an environmental impact on things that I was finding so interesting. But I was really lucky in Northern Rivers. There's so many noxious weed plants. And so I really started just targeting lantana and camphor laurels. And lucky I was doing it at work and getting paid for it, although my boss, Sam, at Wollumban Environmental Services.
Plug for Sam. Come on, Sam. He's a good worker.
And super smart guy, right? He's a botanist and PhD and stuff. I seem to find myself surrounded by scientists no matter where I go. But yeah, he'll cut me a little bit of slack to have a look at a weed that I've just chopped and photograph a sample on. So the first thing to do is to photograph it. If you find out that it's something really new and special and stuff, then sending it on is a good idea. But what I like to tell people to do is to put like a clothes peg on it or a red ribbon or something so they can find it again and then watch it. These things, you may have months of this thing changing. And it's one thing to see it at one stage, but it's another thing to see something fully grow out. And
what's the best zombie fungi you've ever photographed?
Okay, there was a tiny little gibellula, which is a type of fungi that eats spiders. And we nicknamed him Spot. He was only tiny and had this little tiny tail coming up. And with macro photography, your eyes just fool you. Like, what is a tiny, tiny little jumping spider when it's blown up with a macro photo? Might look like a rat with all these big sores all over it, or it might look like a sad puppy dog, or it's like looking at clouds, right? Your mind just sees what it wants to see. And a lot of the time people will forget the thing's only 2 millimeters long and they'll be like, oh, wow, what is that, a giant octopus or something?
Where's one we could find? Direct us to one.
We got a couple that have got names, but if you go for a scroll on my Blue Sky, I think you'd be sufficiently horrified by the variety out there.
That thing of nightmares.
Yeah, well, I try a lot to sort of spread it out. I'll put some spiders and like a caterpillar or a moth or something, and then out of nowhere, just hit them with something horrific.
I love your work. Thank you so much tonight, Donovan. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, thanks. I'm not going to sleep tonight now. I can see these photos scrolling through.
Awesome. Yeah, you've got today.
Sci-fi creatures. Yeah, definitely.
If you do decide, if you do find a really nice one of these and you've photographed it and stuff and you've put it somewhere, iNat or something, and people are like, wow, that's never been seen before, getting in contact with a herbarium or a university or someplace that has people that can do genetics work on it is a great idea. They should be able to tell you how to collect the sample without having Penicillium thielii grow all over it and look at moldy or something. Like a lot of people will use like silicon crystals to desiccate it down, but mold is a big threat. They always recommend me to put it in the fridge to help it dry out. I'm like, there's no way my household's going to let me do that. And if you can find someone who's studying it, pass it on to them, some details of where you got it and what time. And I suppose the big thing before I say any of that is, make sure you've got permission. If you're collecting it in certain places, you'll need a permit. Otherwise, if it's on private land, you need permission from the landowner and stuff. They're not that regulated. And it's always confusing with these samples because you've got an animal, a plant, and a fungi together. So filling in forms is...
What do you call it? It's probably the plant material they're more concerned about at this stage.
Yes. And that's a big plus too with collecting off noxious species, right? Like nobody cares. Like if it's a native plant leaf, but if it's an introduced one, most of the time when I find one on a native leaf, it's when I'm doing something called forest poker, where I'll wait for there to be a bit of a windstorm and then I'll go for a walk in the bush and I just pick up leaves off the ground. And that lets me sample the top canopy of rainforest without climbing up there or without having to chop any trees or anything like that. Yeah, I found some great ones. By the end of it, you've got like a hand of leaves. You can sort of see if you can beat anyone else's hand. Any of these things that you can do to sort of lessen your impact, I suppose. I love going out and I do like the whole machete work and stuff of chopping down weeds and stuff. But I'm very mindful of the fact that those weeds are habitat for these fungi. And if it wasn't for that habitat that's there, these fungi wouldn't be there. And if it wasn't for that habitat that's there, they wouldn't be able to then bounce to the next piece of habitat. And yeah, it might be an introduced weed that, farmers don't want and nobody wants. And if you're going to chop it down, you got to replace it with something that they can use. I think that's the big plus out of it all for me is at first when I was doing bush regen courses and stuff, I started realizing how many of the plants around me were introduced. And I got really depressed. I couldn't look at bush anymore without being like, oh no, that's coralberry and that's coral tree and that's camphor laurel and that's privet. And, but once I sort of realized how many native creatures were utilizing these introduced weeds, it really it restored my faith that so many of these creatures are doing so well.
Yeah.
They're just not noticed.
I know what you're saying. It can be heartbreaking when you walk through your favorite bushland and then suddenly you've learnt what these species are. So the first time you go through, it's like, this bushland's trash. Next time, if you go through and stop, take it slower, observe, you might actually see a native creature feasting on this weed and you're like, it's okay. It is a food source. So I did see possums eating privet recently and it true. Yes, I was worried about the privet flowers and they're going to set seed and there'll be millions more. But
millions. So many.
Millions.
Oh, every seed sprouts.
Millions and millions. But possums are eating their flowers. So
yeah, that's rad.
So that's okay. Might be the only food they've got, but they are eating them. So, all right.
I saw Paddy Melons eating lantana flowers the other day, and it was the cutest thing ever. So I totally get what you're saying. And I was in the bush with a butterfly expert, and we were walking along and we were photographing all these cool caterpillars and stuff. And then we came to this patch of cleared area where a tree had fallen down. There was lantana growing in sunshine, and he got ecstatic. He was like, lantana, yay! And went just in the clump of lantana.
Oh, no.
And butterflies from all over in the jungle came and visited him to get at the flowers. And he was just sitting there clicking away at him. He was like, oh, that was so good.
Well, maybe we have to evolve. Maybe all creatures in time will evolve, given the time, given the space.
Make the start with your own backyard is always good. Like if you're big on the natives and stuff, then get in some cool native trees. We've got so many cool native trees. And
we do.
The more diversity you get, the more fungi you'll get.
Yeah, the more insects.
The more insects, the more, it just goes around a big circle, right? It's great.
We will. Thank you so much, Donovan. We could talk for hours. Appreciate your time. You're doing great. Keep going. We want to see more zombie fungi photos.
Thank you, Danny. Come chat with me on Blue Sky. I'll show you.
Okay. Will do. See you.
Thank you.